noise.
Welcome back to the next part of this Truth and Rhythm episode. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. Also become a member by joining Truth and Rhythm on Patreon, or consider donating at funknstuff.net. Thank you so much for your interest and support. Enjoy.
What kind of guides you in terms of, if you're going to maybe go a little more instrumental, a little more vocal, a little more R&B, a little more funk, a little more jazz?
I think in general, it's been the players in the band. When during the pandemic, Lyle, decided he needed to branch out and do his own thing, and we lost our trumpet player, Paris, who's playing with Harry Styles now. So these guys are doing. All the different players, when they do different stuff, are all doing creative, interesting things. We sort of embrace that change. It becomes like an opportunity. So when that happened, I was like, well, you know what? We've had a horn section for a while. And there's a lot of funk bands out there with horn sections. Let's do something different. Let's try and find a different sound with what we're going for that defines us, a little differently than the bands that we've been sort of lumped in with to a certain degree, and gives us a chance to hear our sound in a different way. That's, when it's different, it's inspiring. It gets you to try new ideas and to explore different sonic avenues. So our saxophonist Drew has embraced synthesizers and keyboards, and now plays keyboards in the band along with Joey. And for us, it's great, man. It's like all of a sudden we have these different textures going on during the songs, and it's just that change is really inspiring to try new ideas and to mix it up, and especially with this new record, doing all instrumental. Trying to find ways to keep the song creative without there being a sort of, the horn section. I don't know. We were sort of getting formulaic with it, I think. So without that horn section formula, it was like, okay, how are we going to make the song interesting without that? And some of it is kind of going down more of a rock thing. Some of it is going down more of a synth funk thing, 80s style, there's so many different avenues, especially when you change up the instrumentation, that it just, it's inspiring to try and push into that direction. So really it's the instrumentation, it's the who's in the band, the players, and what their inspiration is what sort of pushed us in a certain direction. I don't think it's ever been anything too contrived. You know what I mean? I think it's just kind of fallen into our laps, and we've been flexible enough to go with it,
There's on the new record, definitely on a couple of tracks, 2 or 3, some, Roger Troutman influence. Is that all through Joey, or is other people in the band fans too?
Oh, we're all fans. Me and Joey started a band called Juno What, which was really fun, electro funk influence, hand claps on every song and Zapp and Roger vibe. But that's Joey for sure. I want to do more of that stuff because I love it so much. But that's definitely Joey's influence. And he's so great with the talk box that we couldn't resist putting a couple of those on there.
Did you ever get to see Roger live before he left us?
No, I regret that. Yeah, that would have been pretty amazing. Definitely seen the videos.
Yeah, I got to see him a few times. It was cool. I used to always bring
Yeah.
him from the back on his bouncer's shoulders, playing the guitar,
Is
do
that
a
right?
Roger do it. Yeah.
Is that where Prince got it from? In that one video where he comes down on the guy's shoulders at the James Brown show? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I don't know. They were both right around the same time. That was early 80s. So,
yeah, early 80s. Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well,
And
maybe
then
Joey should try that.
with a, was it melodica, the
Oh yeah,
keyboard you blow, or a keytar. Yeah.
guitar. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And I hear, and of course, this is throughout the band's history, some Meters influence and a little bit of that New Orleans, funky vibe.
Yeah. I mean, everything kind of hits us and we try it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, I think that's like, it's crucial to keep your sort of your mind open to different, ideas that different players might want to bring in. And, we have like, it's our 9th album. So we have way more material that we don't play than that we do play. That's one of the things with us is like, we don't really have hit songs, or anything like that. We've got a couple songs that are clearly more popular than others, but we're not attached to the past, And we're lucky enough that if we write a song and the pocket is killing and the arrangement's cool and it allows us to improvise and to have energy, our audience responds to that song as much as they respond to the song that's like #1 on Spotify for us. We're like fortunate enough that our audience is just open-minded and into what we do, or maybe even say how we do it more than it is what we do, so that like we fulfill those parameters, if we can make our crowd dance, if we can show that we're into it and that, we've got enthusiasm for it, then they respond likewise, and that's all we need. So it really gives us this like open palette of music we can keep trying. We never feel like we're stuck playing the music that we've been playing over the years. And there's a lot of freedom in that.
Oh yeah. That's a great point. I think, just the how rather than the what, because, that's how I think a lot of fans of these genres are, and that go to the festivals, that's the beauty of that kind of audience and that kind of fan being receptive that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty great. It's pretty great.
Does the band rehearse a lot? And, what's the process like?
Yeah, we try to, but it's hard, when we're touring as much as we tour, trying to squeeze in rehearsals can be a little stressful, So we try and take time off from touring. Like say we'll take a month where we just do a couple of shows and not try and book club dates, because you can always fill in your calendar with club dates. But if you just do that, you're kind of denying yourself some of your creative process. It's pretty hard to be creative on the road. Some bands can do it, I guess, where you can sound check at rehearsal or rehearse at sound check and that sort of thing. But for us, it's, it's tricky. We'd rather have that time at home, get together a few days a week, work out ideas, go back home, flesh it out a little more and then bring it back in. For me, that's my process. Joey, for example, is really good at kind of writing things complete and bringing it in and having things, 90% done. Whereas I like to have like a bass line and maybe a A and a B section and then get the guys to play it and, try their ideas as far as rhythm parts go. And then, record it, bring it home, mess around with it a little bit more, bring it back, kind of go back and forth that way. But it's different for everybody. Everybody in the band's different with, how they bring in songs. But yeah, I would like to do more the rehearsal side of things and the creative side of things. I'd love to be able to put out an album every year. That to me is exciting. So,
do you guys always record live in studio, or do you do some tracking? And
it's a little bit of both. Generally speaking, we'll track the rhythm section, maybe even Drew doing some horns or keyboards. And depending on what we want to do, we might replace parts at home. Like I said, we've all kind of gotten our home recording setups a little more dialed. So like bring the parts home, and sometimes we'll like share all the stems, and then we'll kind of pass it around. So everyone will like kind of go in and maybe do some edits and then like add some layers and that sort of thing and pass it around. And then eventually we'll send it off to a guy who'll mix it. There's like more than one way to skin a cat. So, we find that like, we've gotten our process pretty well dialed as far as recording. There's always new ways, new avenues to explore.
What about for you personally? Are you somebody who likes to really, tinker with something a lot, or are you like, hey, we got that, let's move on?
No, I like to tinker. Yeah, I'm always to like, the chagrin of some of the guys in the band. I'm like, let's try it this way this time. Let's try it this way. I feel like if I have an idea, I need to try it. Like any idea that pops in my head, I feel like is sort of some part of me, like, that needs to be satisfied. So I'm always messing around. And I like to mess around with songs, like maybe in the middle of a song, I'll throw in like some kind of cover tease, just to like change it up. Or I'll figure out a way to segue two songs together. Or for writing a song, I'll mess around with, let's do a bass drop out of here. Or let's, double the chorus here. Like, there's so much you can do these days once you throw your tracks into Logic or Ableton or whatever you use. It's so easy to cut and paste and manipulate it. For me, it's like, I'm not a purist. I feel like if you're making a recording of an album, a studio version of a song, then anything's fair game. I don't feel like, it has to represent, the way you played it live in the studio or the way you maybe play it live at all. It's like I'm perfectly happy to like chop things up and to mix it up, and anything to make it interesting, creative, make it a better song, make it something that, it's gonna be more accessible or more fun to listen to, whatever it is. I have no problem like manipulating it. Because then you have the studio version and you have the live version, and there's two different things for people to listen to, and we've got a few live records on our Spotify just for that reason. It's like, let's let people hear how we do it live now. And for me, it's more interesting because then I know that I can change it up when we go play it live, mess with the tempo or whatever, the feel a little bit to make it more appropriate for the live experience.
There's a good and bad side, a pro and con side to that from my perspective, just because it makes me think of a lot of the people like, I'm thinking of like Jesse Johnson back in the day, who's this incredible guitar player, but he hardly ever unleashed it on record, and he would say,
right.
I talked to him once and he said, I saved that for the live show.
Right.
Like,
right.
Okay, but
but I want to hear that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it can be hard to emulate what you do live in the studio, and then you feel like you're, that you're like sort of being contrived with that energy, So yeah, I don't know. I never listen to our records. Once I get done with it in the studio, it's like I just never listen to it again, unless I'm trying to like relearn something or, show something to somebody else. I don't know. It's like, for me, it's like, I have that experience, like the experience of creating a song. I get obsessed about it. I listen to it all the time, over and over again. I tell people that like mixing a record for me, is like having a head of knotted hair that you're combing through. And as you comb through the head of hair, you kind of take out the knots each time. And that's like every time you listen to it, you're like, oh, you got to stop and clean up one of the little tangles. And you go back to the top and you listen to it again, you get a little further, but then you got to clean up another tangle. And it's like you keep like combing through the hair and brushing the hair until eventually like there's no more tangles. You know, you don't feel any more tangles. It just goes through and it's like silky smooth and that's it. And that's when you like finally listen to the song. You tell yourself, like, when am I gonna be done? It's like when you can just listen to and there's no more tangles and that's it. You know, it's like you're good. And so like once I've done that, it's like then I'm done. I never listen to it again. You know what I mean? It's like then I think about the live version and I listen to the live version all the time. I'll record our shows and I'll like, you know, even multi-track our shows just to mix it for fun, you know, and check out what we did that night. And I love like listening to our shows right after we played, because then you remember all the little tweaks and all the little things that did or didn't go well. You know what I mean? And you get a lot of ideas that way about how to manipulate stuff. But the studio version is just like, all right, did that. Been there, you know.
Yeah, there's some tedium involved, you know, with that process.
Some what?
Some tedium to that process.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you release it into the world and yeah, you're done.
Yeah, you're done.
You know, we were talking before we started recording, and you mentioned about opening for P-Funk recently. Had you played with P-Funk prior to that? Any bills?
No, that was the first time.
That was the first time. So,
first time. Yeah.
Did you get to interact with those guys at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Benzel.
What were your impressions?
The drummer, Benzel, great guy. Great guy, man. He was super cool to hang out with. He was very energetic and funny as hell. He was great to hang with. A few of the guys were super cool. I mean, some of those guys are legends, you know. The horn section they had, those guys were legends. Bass player, I'm bad with names, so I'm going to try.
Lige Curry.
Yeah, no, there was a guy who played bass on the Parlay records and the Brides records. And
Rodney Skate Curtis.
Yeah, him. He was great to hang with. He was amazing, and he would come out just for like one song. But he'd be there at sound check, and they'd just be running through classic funk covers. You know what I mean? Just having fun with it during sound check. And man, that was a pleasure to watch. Seeing those guys, they're all like super sweet, very kind. George's like grandchildren were in the band. That was really, really, really cool to see the whole generational thing. George looked great, like he was healthier than I've ever seen him. Just like straight edge and just energetic on stage and wearing a suit. Looked fucking sharp. The band was playing killer. I mean, they're saying it was like they're billing it as like their last shows, but for me, like it went so well. They did so well. I'm having a hard time imagining they're not going to do it again. Mm. I hope they do it again.
Yeah. I've seen them so many times. Last time was in Greensboro a couple of years ago, and they had Fishbone and Galactic.
Yeah,
on that bill. Yeah,
yeah. We Fishbone was on some of the shows too. That was a pleasure to meet those guys.
What was the first gig or tour, if you remember, that got you guys out of Colorado?
Out of Colorado.
Because I'm sure you were playing a lot locally, right? And at some point you had an opportunity to go somewhere.
Man, I guess it was the first show we did outside of Colorado was in New Mexico. My buddy, he put that Jeff Coriel booked me to play at his friend's wedding. And then we booked like 3 or 4 shows in conjunction with that. And And that was still when it was Dave Watts Motet. And that was like, realizing that we could actually tour and make this sort of thing happen, but it's always been a very one step at a time process. Like I tell younger bands, like, get your home scene happening, like that's the place where you can guarantee yourself an audience more likely than anywhere else. And you have the ability to really promote yourself well. And you have the ability to sort of get a fan base to really attach themselves to you. If you're like home team band, if you're the band that everyone's like, oh yeah, this is, for us, it was like, this is, Motet's like Colorado's band, Motet's Boulder's band, or Motet's Denver's band. Like, you want the people to associate where they live with who you are and their favorite band. And you know what I mean? That sort of thing helps gather your fan base together to the point where when you go out on the road and you do lose money, which you will, because everybody loses money first time they go out, then when you come home, you have a show or a series of shows that you can rely on to fill your coffers up, to give you confidence that you can keep doing it, to pay your bills and all of that, But if you try and go out and tour before you've got that sort of security going on, then you're going to get yourself in hot water, and you're going to make it tougher to keep band members playing with you because you're going to have a harder time paying them, You're going to have a harder time, paying them what they deserve to be paid, or even like having them see that there's progress being made, So we always did that. We like didn't tour that hard to start with. We put out a record first, and we made sure that our Colorado scene was kicking before we really went out there and toured a bunch. And we were lucky. It was like we were the right place at the right time, because that's when Colorado was really starting to blossom with the music scene, especially Denver, but all over Colorado. Colorado was always a great music scene throughout the 90s. That's why I moved there, especially Boulder. But since then, it's just exponentially blown up, and we kind of rode that wave. So that really helped us traverse some of the ups and downs that we went through with our lineup, and the different the different sort of progress that we had made as a band. In particular the lineup. Whenever your lineup changes, it's a little bit of a setback for some people. People always sort of expecting this person, that person to be there in the band, or to have this instrumentation or that instrumentation. When it changes, it's a little bit of a setback. But we've always been lucky to be embraced by Colorado music scene, music fans, to keep us going through those periods.
Is there anyone else besides you from the first record?
No, Garrett played on our fourth record. And he was the first. He was the first to play on one of our records, guys that are in the band now.
Have you gotten any radio play? Do you get radio play locally?
I don't know. Probably some, I think that there's a station in Denver, KBCO. There's a station in Boulder, KGNU. There's some internet radio stuff, but I don't really pay that much attention, to be honest. I pay attention more to like Spotify numbers and that sort of thing. But no, I don't think really we do, or that we necessarily need it. I think our fans are listening through Bandcamp and SoundCloud, Spotify, internet.
Well, All Day I got as a download. Is it also available in hard copy?
Oh yeah, yeah. We got some CDs.
No vinyl at shows, or
It'll happen, but that whole world's kind of crazy. It's like there's like a year waiting list to get vinyl made. It's really interesting how that's a thing. Apparently, cassettes are a thing now too. It's bizarre, but it's like people are like buying cassettes at shows now too.
wow. What would be a couple of the most unforgettable shows in your whole history with the Motet?
I mean, all of our Red Rock shows. I mean, those are so spectacular. Especially that one we did Lettuce. We did one with Lettuce, and this right before we went on, this storm rolled through that just annihilated the place. People running for cover, lightning strikes, like people hiding in caves, like water coming down the stairs like a waterfall. I mean, they had to clear the entire place out. Everyone had to go to the parking lot, people just drenched, it was crazy. We didn't think we were going to play, but this storm rolled through and then rolled out. It set us back like maybe a half an hour in our set. And the minute they opened the doors back up, the place just packed out. Everyone came back just ready to go, like drenched, like soaking wet, wearing rain gear. And we played one of the best sets of our career. Just like the energy was so high. The fact that everyone came back in and we still played the show. That was unforgettable. Really.
How long ago was that?
That was probably 6 years ago, something like that, 5 or 6 years ago. That was an amazing one. I mean, the Jam Cruise sets, those are always incredible. Playing on the pool deck at Jam Cruise, watching the sun go down, those are incredible. Where else, man? Now you're making me think. Everything's a blur. Anything happened before the pandemic's a little bit of a blur.
Have you ever sat in with somebody that maybe was pretty cool?
Yeah, I mean, I play with George Porter and Eric Stoltz, and we did a bunch of, meter stuff. That was incredible. Recently, I did a show at the Troubadour in LA. I'm sure you know that venue well. I didn't realize how historic that venue was until I went to their website and looked at the list of different shows they had throughout those decades. But I did a show there. My buddy Marcus Rezak put together a show, and it was with I did some Zappa songs with Arthur Barrow and Ike Willis. Did some Doors songs with Robbie Krieger. And I did some Weather Report with Felix Pastorius, all in one night. So that was a pretty special occasion for me, especially playing the Doors stuff in the Troubadour with Robbie Krieger. That was
how'd you end up getting that gig?
Oh, Marcus and I, we go way back. We've been playing a bunch of music together over the years, and I don't know. He's got his fingers in a lot of pies. He's always putting together different lineups. Somehow, just think through the promoter and different connections. He put it together and asked me to come play. Yeah, it was pretty great.
Have you spent much time in Los Angeles?
No, but I'd like to spend more. Man, we, my girlfriend and I, Danny, we went to, after that show, we went to Universal Studios for a day and had fun messing around with that. But I realized that night we stayed right in that area, and I realized that the baked potato is like a walking distance from where we were staying. So we walked down there and saw some incredible jazz. What a cool spot that is. Classic jazz venue, just all the posters on the walls, a little bit divey, super small. And I've been on their mailing list ever since. And I can't even believe the level of players that they get in that spot,
Yeah, that's one thing I really miss from moving from Los Angeles to Charlotte. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that alone, that one venue alone would makes me want to move to LA. It's pretty amazing. But I'd like to.
I'm sorry, that rain show you mentioned, though, it just brought to mind something I haven't thought of in a while. And that was, I went to a Black Crowes show here.
Uh-huh.
And it was like it was outside amphitheater, and a lightning storm broke out, and everyone had to go back in their cars and didn't know if the show was going to happen,
Yeah.
and it was like an hour or something like that. I was in the car
Yeah.
and was able to go back, and it was just really cool to be able to sort of have the heavens open up, if you will.
Right. Yeah. That feeling of, is this going to happen? Is this not going to happen? Like that feeling of, okay, it's going to happen. And you're, twice as excited about playing music, at that point. It's kind of like that, like this tales of the road. You know what I mean? There's so many moments. We've had countless moments where we've had vehicles break down, and it's just like, oh shit, is this show going to happen or not? I've been through so many different, just harrowing sort of exploits of like having to rent a vehicle last minute, like hitchhiking to a U-Haul place, renting a U-Haul, driving it to the bus where it's broken down, putting all the gear in the bus, and riding, like a couple of us riding in the back of the U-Haul with the lights off, like for 3 hours or whatever, and then getting to the gig and like schlepping everything out, and then immediately like downbeat, got to play the show. And those are some of my favorite shows that I've played. I'd probably name like a dozen shows that I've gone through like that.
I can relate to that, not being in a band, but having done mobile disc jockey work for many, many years, and all the equipment and moving it, and having, weather issues, vehicle issues, venue issues, so kind of similar, and just anxiety and
that's
man, sweating bullets at times, and just trying to make it happen. You got to do it.
And then you're on stage, you're like, yes, it's happening.
Is there anyone else besides P-Funk that is like a big band that you guys, outside the usual festival suspects, that you guys have shared a stage with?
I mean, do you know what opened up for Ohio Players once? Speaking of Ohio Players, that was cool. That was very cool. One time we played before James Brown at Jazz Fest in Aspen, Colorado. And that was very cool because I got to meet James Brown at the hotel afterwards, and shake his hand. That was like a special moment. Yeah, that was very cool. Doing the Jam Crew sets is always cool because we get to play with different acts. Steel Pulse was one of my favorite groups. And they were on one once, so that was very cool.
What to you makes funk music so special, and what would you say is a key to locking in the pocket for funk?
The feeling of funk music is what makes it so special, I think. The way a funk drummer might play. That's why it's like you can't quantize funk. When funk gets quantized, then it becomes dubious, not to say that it hasn't happened, and I mean, even when Prince did some drum programming, he would mess with the time to make it funky, when Dilla would make his beats, it was funky because of the way the time felt, and it wasn't quantized. So it's really like a timing thing, which is not a very interesting way to put it, but, it's less about the patterns, like you could say like, well, the kick on 1 and 3, or, the snare on 2 and 4, but it's really about the timing. You can even have the timing of the patterns, like don't even have to be specific. You could have the pattern of the kick be antithetical to the bass pattern, but the way the timing falls is what makes it funky, or what makes it work. It's where the bass drum falls against the bass, or vice versa, is what makes it work or doesn't work. It's the space between the notes. It's the space at the end of the phrase before the downbeat that gives you that feeling that makes you want to move. It's where the backbeat falls. That's why someone like, Nikki Glaspie, when she plays, like where she puts that backbeat, it just instantly everything's working. Instantly, it's not about the pattern she's playing. It's not about the fills. It's just instantly, because the snare is falling where it falls timing wise. It's like everything works, and all of a sudden that inspires everybody else to play a certain way. So it's really just like a timing thing. It's like a feeling thing, and to me, it's like the best players feel it in their body at the same time. Some of the best funk drummers are great singers. It's kind of like that sort of ability to sing while you play drums allows a certain freedom for your hands to separate from like what's going on here, and the time to be held here, the pulse, and then the hands can like, mix it up, play simple, do whatever, but the timing never wavers. That point always falls back into place. So some of my favorite funk drummers are great singers too, and I think it just says something to where there's a non-attachment physically between the hands and your core, and I think that some, I'm not a teacher or anything, but when I see that with some younger players who are having trouble like finding a pocket, especially with funk music, there's a stiffness that comes from their body between the hands and the core that doesn't allow that timing that you can hear, to be able to be played. You might be able to hear it, but you can't necessarily play it because there's just like stiffness. There's like this, like, cement that happens between the two. And once that gets released, then there's a lot more ability to play in the pocket and to play something that's like the timing is like, feels good. You can't explain it because there's, there's funk music that pushes, there's funk music that lays back, there's funk music that sits right in the pocket. It's not about any of that necessarily. You can't quantify it in those terms. It's just got to feel good, and everyone in the band's got to be on the same page with that, But once that's the case, it's like, that's when it really like starts to make people move, So it's kind of hard to explain.
Oh yeah, it's definitely hard to
Clearly.
explain. That's why I like to ask people to try.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The feel, you got to be a little unconscious or subconscious, whichever is the term, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
intellectualize it.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Did you have any challenges initially, like really being able to find that place, or was it something that came rather naturally to you once you kind of understood how to play the drums?
No, I definitely, and I still do have to shed it. You know what I mean? I shed things to sort of give myself that freedom more and more. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's just about, counting through fills or singing along to parts, just different ways of sort of, letting go of that stiffness, and growing up, I didn't have exposure to that really at all. I didn't have a teacher that was sort of mentoring me with that. I didn't really listen to that music. And I think it's just harder as you get older to sort of embrace something that you're not accustomed to. And there's a lot of younger drummers, like, these churchy drummers that play in the church when they're like 3 years old, and their parents play drums. And it's like, man, that's like, I'm trying to catch up to that. That's, that natural ability is like, it's hard to compare to when you like, for me, like I said, I was a black sheep. So I was kind of on my own trying to figure it all out. And I was listening to more rock and then some jazz stuff growing up. So for me, funk is actually, it's more of a quest and a work in progress, and it is something that just came naturally to me, but that passion is there. It's always there. It's like that's the love of the music drives you every day to keep, trying.
When you've had all these different guys in the band, what are you typically looking for when you have an opening?
Oh man, that's a good question. I mean, there's a lot to it, you know what I mean? Because you can find a great player, but they might not be that fun to hang out with, you know what I mean? Or you might find someone that's like a great hang, but there's no synergy with like writing and being creative together. You know what I mean? Or you might be like able to like, collaborate, but they're not necessarily able to tour the way you want to tour, there's so many pieces to the puzzle. It's like pretty damn tricky, and there's like, I think there's a lot of compromise that needs to get made to a certain degree. But the first thing we look for is how do they sound with our music? How do they sound with the music that we like to play? You know what I mean? It's the playing part. Like, how does that feel? How does it sound when you listen back to it? And then, there's the other things, and some things you can grow into. I mean, being in a band is like being in a marriage, like it's never perfect. And there's like things to figure out energetically and dynamically, when you're trying to communicate about music, that can be really challenging. And that's the sort of commitment to getting past that and to sort of even accepting that that's always going to be there, that sort of friction that comes up and maybe goes away, comes back up again. That's that's a real thing to sort of wrap your head around. Some people have a hard time wrapping their heads around it, and you realize it's not going to work, but I think the ones that are the most successful are the ones that, you sort of realize that you just got to communicate and figure that sort of thing out and talk about the differences that might be and the sort of ways to get beyond that. So, there's musical side of it, and then there's a personality side of it. The first thing you look for is music. And then I think the personality part just comes over time, you figure out how to like interact and work with somebody. But for me, it's like finding the best player isn't, finding a ringer or whatever isn't number one. The number one thing is somebody who wants to collaborate and is open to, working on music. Music is work. Music is like hard work that, takes time and takes communication. And there's no, like, there's magic in moments, but over the sort of bigger picture, it's more just, what do they say? Perspiration than inspiration. So it's you finding someone who wants to put in the time for that is like the most important thing.
No, you must go through a lot of guys sometimes when you're needing to find, when you're needing to fill a slot.
Yeah, well, we have in the past, but the core of the band now is, we're all deeply committed to what we're doing, and we're able to do it instrumentally with the five of us. So it's been a while since we've sort of had to go through a lot of people. Right now, really the sort of focus, beyond the five of us is trying to, find a singer that works with us and find somebody that really wants to collaborate and, write songs and develop our sound as far as like, vocal music goes. And so we've had a lot of guests over the last 3 years vocally, which has been awesome because there's been so many great singers that have joined us on stage. And it's exciting, I think, for our audience, but it's also challenging because we end up playing the same songs. We want to write new songs. So I think that's the next step in our development is finding a vocalist who really works for us and wants to collaborate and wants to sort of grow a sound, you know.
Of all those bands that you took up for the Halloween shows and maybe other covers that you've done, is there any one of them or a couple of them that were the most challenging for you to replicate or to do what you do with it?
I mean, Earth, Wind, Fire, I suppose, or P-Funk, because there's so much to chew on. With P-Funk, we did 2 nights of music. With Earth, Wind, and Fire, it's just the music is so challenging to come correct on, But with both those bands, I love the music so much. I didn't find it difficult. I found it, exhilarating to spend the time to figure it out. So those were both really fun. We actually, one year, we covered the music of Madonna. And, but we decided to do it very different, like not Madonna, trying to like take her songs and do them, do a Madonna song Afrobeat, or do a Madonna song drum and bass, or do it like slow funk ballad style. I don't know. That was hard. I don't think we'll ever do that again.
Earth, Wind, and Fire, it's so precise and intricate. Is that?
Yeah. I mean, and it's 3-4 part harmony and all the horn lines and the percussion and the arrangements. I mean, man, that music is a challenge.
Yeah, songs like Getaway.
Yeah. Oh man, love it. Yeah, that stuff's amazing. I would love to do that again.
Well, if I have any say in it, bring it back. Although, you've only done it in Colorado, right? You've never taken that on the road, right?
No, we haven't. No, that's a good point. But now you got me thinking about the Isleys and the Barkays and the Ohio players. So now I'm like, my wheels are turning.
Well, as long as I can at least, get my hands on a recording of it, that'll be good enough.
Okay.
Although I'd love to see it too. In fact, definitely on my bucket list. And I told Joey, Red Rock's definite bucket list.
Oh yeah.
I haven't been there.
Come on out. It's dude, that venue is incredible.
It sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, before I let you go, I want to ask you a question I like to ask guests. I don't know if you've seen the show much, but if you could only have 5 Desert Island albums, and I know it's not going to be definitive, but maybe what comes to mind right now as you think about it, what 5, and they can't be ones that you're part of.
Okay. I would say Bitches Brew, because that one's endlessly interesting to listen to. There's always something new to hear on that one. Probably the White Album, because those songs are so iconic to my childhood. And it's a double album, so you get the most bang for your buck. I love this guy, Ray LaMontagne. He put out an album called Trouble, and it's just like a deeply emotional record. So
I've heard that name, but what's he play?
He's a singer. He's kind of like a folk singer. He's got a band though, and the band's fantastic on the record. But they, something different. Believe it or not, like mostly, I just love listening to jazz records. I would probably listen to Now He Sings, Now He Sobs by Chick Corea. Because that one's pretty sure it's Roy Haynes on that one. It's one of my favorite drummers. And how many is that?
That's 4.
That's 4. Got one more. Man, I might have to say Isley's Live It Up. Yeah, man, just that music makes me so happy. I could do anything. It's just gives me energy. So
when you talk about Ernie's drumming on that track, Live It Up, he's really drums are prominent on that one. Yeah,
part 1, part 2. Like I always
they're all part 1, part 2. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, Midnight Sky is on there. That's a great track.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That adds some good variety. And I would say for sure Miles Davis has, consistently been the person that's on the most top fives. And I've
Is that
done
right?
300 of these shows now. And I mean, just
That's
almost
amazing.
everyone includes Miles. It's not always that one, it's a wide variety of
Yeah.
different ones, but
Right.
yeah.
Kind of blue, I'm sure.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's the man.
Time for some plugs. Where can people go to get your record? Give the website, all that.
Motet.com. All our stuff's on there. Merchandise, tour dates. We're on Facebook, if that's your means, but Motet.com has all our merch and our tour dates, info about the band, that sort of thing. You can go to Bandcamp to download music. We're on Spotify and all that stuff. So it's pretty easy to find.
Yeah. And what do your tour prospects look like for the rest of 23? Just in terms of how, busy it's looking like it's going to be. And, if you anticipate that you're going to be playing throughout the whole year or just certain parts of the year.
I think we're going to take some time off in April and May, but then, come summertime, June, we're going to be hitting it hard, probably all the way through New Year's. We might do some recording in November if we can work it out, but I would anticipate we'll be hitting it hard at least until Halloween. We'll probably be doing some Halloween shows in Colorado, so people can look for that.
And the New Year's shows, do you do a theme usually for that as well, or just a regular extended set?
Oh, for New Year's?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Yeah. No, we just do extended sets, we'll play up to New Year's, do the whole traditional ball drop and all that stuff.
Last question for you. What are you most proud of accomplishing, would you say, musically?
I think putting out 9 albums, feel pretty good about that, and it's spanned a lot of different genres and styles and musicians. And it's a testament to being tenacious. I think that's what it takes in this business. You got to be tenacious, and figure it out, and that first record we made, we were borrowing money to try and make it, and, figuring out how we could record it and making CDs and then traveling the country, like hawking CDs from the stage, and now it's like you can put a song out on Spotify and have it precede you in whatever town you're in. So things have changed quite a bit with that whole process. But no matter what, you got to be tenacious. You got to sort of figure out how to make things work and keep trying. So, I feel like that's the testament to that, having 9 albums out.
Congratulations on that. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Next one's going to be sweet. It'll be the 10th. That's
Yay.
a milestone. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Did you ever seek a major label deal?
No. And that kind of fell off, towards the beginning of our career. It was like, well, what's a major label going to do for us, that we're not doing already? I'd seen too many bands get deals and then fall apart, go into debt, like, oh, we get advanced all this money, you spend it on a tour bus and yada yada, and then all of a sudden you're in debt $50,000 to the record company, and you have no real way to make it back. So it's like I saw too much of that. I knew better at that point. So I'm kind of glad the way the industry has ended up. I know there's a lot of complaints about it. I know it's still tenuous in a lot of ways, but for me personally, I think the industry has ended up in a better position for folks like us and bands like us who are on the margins, and sort of, found our place in the do-it-yourself world.
For sure. Well, Dave, been fun talking to you, and I want to thank you for myself, the viewers, listeners. Thank you for all the music over the years, and thank you for continuing to bring it.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate you, man. Couldn't do it without guys like you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Truth in Rhythm. A big thank you goes out to our guest as well as to you, the viewer and listener. Also, much gratitude to Pleasure for supplying the show's funky opening and closing music. As a reminder, you can always access the complete list of linked shows by episode funkinstuff.net. I urge you to support this program and receive the extra benefits along with that by subscribing to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube and sharing it with funk, R&B, and jazz lovers, joining Truth and Rhythm's membership program at Patreon, submitting a donation at funkinstuff.net, buying Everything is on the One, the First Guide to Funk book at Amazon, shopping at the Funky Things store for cool merchandise at funkinstuff.net, and linking through funkinstuff.net for all of your Amazon purchases. In addition, if you're an artist or anyone seeking proven, results-oriented professional marketing, PR, writing, or editing consultation or production, check out the media services section at funkinstuff.net. Also, I encourage you to drop me a line at scottg@funkinstuff.net. I love the feedback, suggestions, guest requests, appearance and sponsorship inquiries, and just talking about my favorite subject, groove-based music. For now, and as always, this is Scott Dr. GX Goldfine saying, keep on vibing to the rhythm of the one.